Hello, thank you for your interest in FuseHub and our efforts to support New York State manufacturers that were impacted by COVID. My name is Eric Vassar. I'm a solution specialist here at FuseHub, and I'll be narrating this short presentation. With regard to the agenda, I'm going to start with a quick overview of the COVID relief efforts that New York State manufacturers saw as part of the CARES Act. Then I'll go into a little bit more detail on the Manufacturing Reimagined initiative that FuseHub championed and give some project examples and best practices there. Then I'll describe resources that are still available to New York manufacturers, whether you're experiencing COVID issues or not. But first, if you're new to FuseHub, I want to give a quick overview of who we are. So in the 1980s, the National Institute of Standards and Technology recognized the need to help small manufacturers grow, create jobs, and save costs, and generally to become more competitive. The goal was to keep the companies and jobs here in the US. As a result, 51 centers were established nationwide, one for each of the 50 states and one for Puerto Rico. And that became the MEP network, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Network. Within New York State, the MEP leadership falls under NYSTAR, that's a division of Empire State Development. And responsibility for servicing the New York manufacturers is divided into 10 regions shown on the map, plus FuseHub, the 11th region, with a statewide footprint, essentially. So if you're seeking assistance with things like engineering design work, patent advice, automation, locating a contract manufacturing, testing facilities, and even funding, we can put you in contact with your regional MEP center, a university-based NYSTAR asset, or even resources outside your region, whichever best suits your needs. Okay, so let's talk about the COVID Recovery Initiative. As part of the CARES Act, this was providing support to manufacturers who are looking to recover from the pandemic and essentially position themselves to be more resilient and competitive in the future. This was administered under NYSTAR. There are various programs involved, and combined, they had $850,000 in available funding to support the initiative. So this was broken down into 4 programs. The first one was provide assistance in finding or procuring PPE, that's personal protective equipment. The second focused efforts on reshoring and bringing offshore manufacturing back to the US and to New York as well, and also strengthening supply chains. The third performed business and capability assessments virtually to help assist companies with everything from operational efficiency, safety, technology integration, things like that. And lastly, we did a series of webinars and virtual workshops focused specifically on COVID issues relevant to manufacturers. That's the one FuseHub led, so that's the one I'm going to focus more detail on. So we called that initiative Manufacturing Reimagined. And depending on how a company was impacted by COVID, they really did have to reimagine or reinvent how they did certain things. So here's how it worked. Started with a series of webinars and virtual workshops. And we use these to provide information, training from various experts from across New York and even across the country. And it allowed for some virtual networking opportunities. For each event, we offered what we called a resource report. This was a document that was emailed out to the attendees. It contained relevant content from the event, like any websites we referenced, email addresses for the presenters, and things where they could get follow-up information. From there, if they were interested, the manufacturer could request a follow-up call and speak with us to describe their specific COVID challenges. And we at FuseHub will provide individualized recommendations on who in the New York State ecosystem had the expertise to help with that specific challenge, and then make an introduction to that NYSTAR asset with that particular skill set. Lastly, we offered a funding opportunity. So the idea was that if you could identify a COVID-related challenge, partner up with a NYSTAR asset, and they would provide the expertise to help fast track a project to deal with that challenge. And then through the CARES Act, it would help supplement up to $10,000 of the cost of that project to make it more affordable for the manufacturer. So here's a snapshot of some of the program accomplishments. We held 11 events total, in the forms of webinars and virtual workshops. And these virtual workshops were nice because they had kind of a networking and matching component to them. All of these topics were manufacturing related and timely. So things like how to maintain quality, during COVID. We did a segment on Industry 4.0. This is a kind of a wish list item for many companies, and for those that were deemed non-essential, they maybe had the opportunity to look at implementing something in their quote downtime. We did a segment on safety versus productivity. So in the time of social distancing and air quality, how do you keep your employees safe and distanced and all the necessary requirements without impacting your productivity? We did 2 events on supply chain and new supplier vetting. And we did something on food and beverage. So COVID was challenging enough to deal with for manufacturing of hard goods, but when your product, when your manufactured product is an edible or drinkable product, and you're trying to make that during a highly contagious pandemic, it's just an added layer of complexity. So those are some of the types of examples of the topics we did. If you're interested, there's recordings available for all of those previous topics, and the link is at the bottom of the slide. In total, we had close to 450 attendees for all the events. These included manufacturers from around the state, university assets, so experts at Cornell, RIT, RPI, and others, various economic development centers, workforce organizations, and really all other key players that are active in the New York State manufacturing ecosystem. So for this initiative, for Manufacturing Reimagined alone, we had a funding pool of $170,000. It has been fully awarded, and that helped to support projects of up to $10,000 each in conjunction with partnering with a NISTAR asset. We were able to fund 18 projects total, and there's a few that I just wanted to highlight to kind of give an example of what successful projects were. So these are kind of the best of the best. All right, so the first project I want to highlight was an engineering study. The NISTAR asset that the manufacturer partnered with in this case was the Center of Excellence in Advanced and Sustainable Manufacturing that's located at RIT. The project it was essentially a team of engineering students that designed, built, and tested a demo unit in order to show the manufacturer how they could efficiently automate some of their manufacturing processes. And as a result, it showed that they would be able to increase their capacity to fill their back order, all while maintaining social distancing and safety guidelines. And once implemented, they expect to save about 35 jobs that otherwise would have been lost due to lack of sales. The second project was a technology integration project. The NISTAR asset in this case was CCMR, the Cornell Center for Materials Research. And here they partnered with a manufacturer who had a really big sales opportunity, but because their supplier was unable to scale up to meet the demand, and they didn't have any luck with alternative suppliers, they had to take a new approach. So the team at Cornell was able to use an alternate material with nanofiber technology. And by using that different technology, the manufacturer shifted to a different supplier that could make this new form. And not only could they scale up to meet this new demand, but by alleviating their supply chain issue, they got better performance. The new material was suitable for additional applications outside of the additional target market, so there may be additional sales there. And at these new upper volumes at scale, they're able to reduce their cost about 30%. The third example is another engineering project, an analysis project. And in this case, the NISTAR asset was SciTech. They're the MEP center responsible for the Northern New York region. And here SciTech partnered up with a manufacturer that was looking to do a structural load study and design analysis of their facility. The manufacturer was trying to reshore a key component from overseas because of supply chain issues that were holding up shipments and creating really significant delays. But in order to move that manufacturing in-house, they had to install an overhead crane, and they had to be sure that the building had the structural integrity to support it. So As a result of this project, not only is the manufacturer going to see significant lead time improvements and supply chain stability, they can help eliminate cost fluctuations by having everything in-house, and they expect to create 2 full-time jobs. The last project I want to highlight dealt with process automation. Here, the NiStar asset was the MEP center responsible for Syracuse and the Central New York region, TDO. And here, TDO partnered with a manufacturer that had a sealant dispensing operation and a gasketing line within their assembly process. Historically, that had been done with employees working in close proximity to each other. Of course, because of COVID, they had trouble getting employees back to work under those conditions. But by automating those processes, not only are they going to be able to promote social distancing on a factory floor, at the same time, they'll improve their product quality because it'll be a more repeatable process and boost their throughput by an estimated 30+% to meet their backlog demand. So those 4 projects really kind of illustrate great examples of how the MEP system and the NiStar network can team up with manufacturers to accomplish some really impactful projects in a short period of time. But if you're just finding out about the CARES program now, you're probably thinking, oh, is it too late to get help? Well, no. While the Manufacturing Reimagined program has been completed and all those funds have been awarded, FUSEB still has a number of initiatives to help manufacturers, including our Jeff Lawrence Innovation Fund, various training and networking events, and the thing I'm going to focus on is our solutions program. So I would say one of FUSEB's biggest kind of claims to fame is the strength of our network supporting New York manufacturers. We rely heavily on the NiStar innovation assets. These are 70+ New York-based entities created to supporting manufacturers and technology advancement. In addition to the regional MEP centers that I mentioned earlier, these include centers of excellence, centers for advanced technology, which are comprised of university-based research experts, and various business and technology incubators throughout the state that are focused on helping early-stage companies who are just getting started. Also, we have probably the most comprehensive network of contract manufacturers in New York State, covering everything from injection molding, 3D printing, CNC machining, laser cutting, water jetting, circuit board design and layout, cut and sew operations for textiles companies, co-packing for food manufacturing, assembly, distribution, the list goes on. Point is, whether you're looking for help on a specific operation or with a specific component, or if you want to outsource everything, we can help you partner with companies right here in New York State. We even have connections to solutions provider for things like patent and IP assistance, regulatory requirements like ISO, UL certifications, NSF, and we can possibly help with relevant opportunities for funding, depending on what the challenge is. So for assistance with any manufacturing challenges, I invite you to go to our newly updated website. Under the services tab, you can request a free consultation, and I'll post a link at the end of the recording. So FUSEB is also dedicated to training and related events. So each year we host dozens of events that can give manufacturers opportunity to discover and connect with resources that can help grow their business. And while we've had really good success with virtual events over the past 18 or so months, as things continue to open up more, we're going to start doing live events again. Some of our most popular events have always been our solutions forums. Think of these like a resource matching event customized to the attendees. So for example, let's say a company needed a piece of test equipment. Maybe they had a failure or something and they needed to figure out what was going on, but they didn't necessarily want to go out and purchase that equipment. Well, we could try to match them up with someone, hopefully in a region that has the equipment and available capacity. So it's things like that. You know, maybe you need some extra engineering resources, or if you want to get an ISO certification, but you don't know where to start. Really, any type of manufacturing related challenges you have, we can typically find a resource in New York that can assist. We also host various expos throughout the year. These highlight new programs, the latest trends in technology, And if that sounds interesting, you're definitely going to want to check out the New York State Innovation Summit in November. You can find out more about it on the event directory on our website. And then we also offer a number of business-to-business networking opportunities. So these give manufacturers a chance to describe their products and services and interact with other companies to share best practices. So again, if any of those sound interesting or applicable, I encourage you to go to the link provided and check out our events calendar. Lastly, we know how in the manufacturing world things can turn on a dime, as proven by the events of the last year and a half or so. So we're always trying to stay on top of the trends and anticipate where things are headed, and then provide timely initiatives to address those specific needs in response to industry challenges. So here's a few examples of the special programs we've offered recently. The first one, the COVID relief, that refers to the CARES Act initiative I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation with the 4 different funding tracks. But even prior to that, FUSE had dedicated funds to support a competition for companies that were looking to pivot production from their normal products to PPE and ventilators. And through that, we awarded $300,000 in the very early stages of COVID. And that went to companies that were looking to fill that crucial supply chain need at the time. We've also been very active with cybersecurity efforts for a few years now, including education about navigating the various aspects of cybersecurity compliance and performing assessments based on the Department of Defense requirements. And last year, we wrapped up a program called Build for Scale that specifically helped startup hardware manufacturers transition from their prototype into a scalable design that could be efficiently manufactured. So, just showing that in addition to our normal solutions program offerings and network connections, we're constantly offering new opportunities to help manufacturers. So feel free to browse through the website or, here's a subtle plug, but if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, then you can be on top of these things and find out about these special initiatives as soon as they come out. All right, well, that was it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this short video about our COVID relief efforts and the resources that are still available to manufacturers. If I can be of any assistance, feel free to reach out to me directly by email or submit a request for assistance to our team, and we'll get back to you typically within a day. Thanks again, and take care.